Greetings and salutations, travelers of the internet. Welcome to the Lit Round Table. I'm Anna.
And I'm Joseph, and today we'll be your wise or not so wise mentors for today's audio adventure into all things storytelling. And today, remaining on the topical side of things, I know the last episode we talked about our reaction to the Rings of Power with the first 2 episodes. Mm-hmm. And today, now that we're 5 episodes in, right?
Yeah, I think so.
We're talking theories. Because there are so many theories floating around. It's basically a big game of Who's Sauron. And we're going to talk about all of that and more. There's other things not Sauron related to talk about, surprisingly. So, yeah, we're going to get into all of it. And first, though, we're going to go over the usual stuff. So, Anna, what you been up to?
So many things. I do just want to put a little disclaimer on this that I have been at a week-long sewing retreat, which has been glorious. But it also means that during the last week, I have not necessarily done a lot of media consumption. So,
right.
But I still have quite the list. So, here we go. For reading, I'm reading Little Town on the Prairie still. We're almost done with that. Our last meeting on that one is this week. Secrets of Storytelling, we're also almost done with that, which has been really fun. I did start listening to Howl's Moving Castle.
Like the book?
The book.
Cool.
By, oh my gosh, I don't know what her name is. I'll have it in the description.
Couldn't tell you.
But I started listening to that, and I bought the book because I think that'll be my next book club book that I do with the kids. After we finish the Little House series, I wanted to go back to a fantasy. So,
how far are you in it?
I think I'm like 5 chapters in, so not terribly far.
I've heard that the movie and the book are fairly different.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not even that far yet, and I can tell you, yes, they're very different.
Just curious,
but not in a bad way. Like they're both good. They're just different. And then I've also still been reading *The Princess and the Scoundrel* by Beth, Revis, which is a Star Wars novel. It's very good.
Is that good so far?
Yes. It's great. For watching, I went on a bit of a Marvel kick.
Oh, okay.
Kind of accidentally. So I started watching She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. Mm-hmm. That's been surprisingly good.
I know, yeah.
In a very lighthearted, not the end of the world kind of way, which I kind of appreciate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I also watched the movie Eternals, which is another Marvel movie. Did you watch that one?
I fell asleep in the middle of watching that one.
That's fair. It's a weird one.
It is a weird one.
And I walked away from it just going, huh?
Yeah.
And then I also...
I've heard, like, it's a movie that should have huge ramifications, but doesn't.
Yeah.
Like, how come no one's... I've heard people be like, how come no one's mentioned the giant eternal skeleton in the middle of the ocean?
Yeah. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Oh, well. What else you got?
Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Oh, I forgot you hadn't seen that.
Yeah. It was just okay.
Yeah, that's fair.
I didn't love Wanda as the big bad. I understood her motivations, but the whole timey-wiminess of it all was very confusing. And
she was terrifying, though.
She was terrifying. But I like Wanda too much. I didn't like her being a bad guy.
I know.
Even though I totally understand why.
Mm-hmm.
But I just felt like the explanation of going between the different timelines was very muddly.
Yeah. And spoiler alert for Multiverse of Madness, plug your ears, John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic.
Right. Yes. So that explains why in a couple episodes previous to this one, you were like, nah, he's definitely Mr. Fantastic. I was like, I don't know. Yeah. No, he is. You're right. Mm-hmm. I also started watching Moon Knight.
Love that show. great one.
I only watched 2 episodes of it, and by that point I had had a lot of Marvel, so I stopped.
That's fair. Oscar Isaac is great, though.
Oscar Isaac
Love
is
Oscar
great. Again, a little confused about the premise, but I'm sure that becomes more clear the more you watch it.
Yeah. Yes, it definitely will.
Okay. Rings of Power, which we'll be talking about. House of the Dragon.
Way darker than Rings of Power, but also surprisingly good.
Are you caught up? Did you see the
Yes.
wedding episode?
Yes.
Ugh. Weddings and Game of Thrones, bad business. Just don't do it.
Game of Thrones weddings, man. Someone's gonna die every time. There's just no getting around it.
Awful.
Oh man.
I watched the first 3 episodes of Andor. Have you watched that?
Me too.
Yes.
Yes. Also great.
Yes, Diego Luna.
Yeah.
Just
He's awesome.
so good. So compelling.
Yeah. And again, spoilers real quick for Andor. If you haven't seen it yet, go watch it. It's actually really good if you're a Star Wars fan. We didn't see a single stormtrooper those entire 3 episodes.
You're right, we didn't.
We never saw. It's so like different.
Yeah. I think that's about to change.
Probably. Well, of course it is, because he's about to get like inducted into like the Rebel spy system.
Yeah.
But it's reminding me of season 1 of Mandalorian a little bit. With how like disconnected it feels with. It's just like this dude living his life in the Star Wars universe, you know? He's not messing around with like big evil empires. There's this big evil corporation that he's messing with.
I was going to say, he's living under the thumb of capitalism.
Yeah, pretty much.
In the worst way possible.
Yeah. Ugh, man. Yeah, no, that show's been really good so far.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
Also the little robot, which I'm afraid we're not going to see anymore, but I love that little robot.
Yeah.
And then Critical Role, of course. I'm mostly caught up. I missed part of this week's episode. But that's okay, because this coming week is an off week, so I'll have plenty of time to make up.
I wish it wasn't.
Make up time. And for campaign 2, I'm on episode 92.
You've almost broke 100.
Almost broke 100.
Are they still all sitting at the table together right now?
Yes. Okay. But now that you say that, it's like March of 2022 or 2020, early March, and I'm like, oh dear.
You might in like the next episode.
It's about to all change.
In like the next episode, it might be just them in separate areas. Yeah. So get ready for that change.
I think it's in March. I remember them saying like what the day was, and I was like, oh no, that's almost the date the world ended.
Yep.
So,
yeah, with COVID and everything. Crazy.
Yeah.
That'll be a really weird time capsule for you to witness when you watch through those episodes.
Yeah, it already feels weird.
Yep.
I'm not even there yet, but yeah. Anyway, what about you?
So I'll start with playing because that's what I've been doing lately. D&D.
Yes.
D&D. So we're still hunting down a dragon cult.
Well, I heard you may have accidentally killed a baby dragon.
Oh, Lord. Anna, this was one of the most emotional board game experiences I've ever had. Aww. Because here's the thing. One of our characters, his name is Thrill. He's a little cat person, bard. I forget, Tabaxi, that's the name of the race. He's a Tabaxi bard, which is like a cat person. And he's like a tuxedo cat. Just a big tuxedo cat that plays the flute. And he went in to like do some like stealthy reconnaissance for us because he can turn invisible. And he went and found some dragon eggs in a cave, and he took one. But through a series of bad rolls, managed to accidentally drop it, and it broke, and the baby dragon died.
Oh, and that's terrible.
It was a traumatizing experience for this character.
I feel traumatized, and I wasn't even in the game.
That was a bad time. Like, Thrill is going through all the stages of grief.
Aww.
But then the next day we went back into the cave and we managed to steal him another egg, which we had stolen 2, but then we got ambushed on the outside of the cave and we all almost died trying to keep this stupid egg.
Oh, wait. Why does he want the egg?
Because he wants to have a little baby dragon.
Okay.
That's pretty much it.
Is he going to sit on the egg and keep it warm?
I don't know how dragon eggs work. I don't think any of us know how dragon eggs work.
I'm just afraid you're going to end up with 2 more dead dragon babies.
I guess time will tell. Thrill needs to roost
Yes.
the dragon egg. You just curl up around it like a little kitty. You just curl up around it and go to sleep. No, we almost died several times during the session. Like, we almost had a couple of close calls trying to get these eggs. But we pulled it off. And we leveled up to level 4.
Nice.
By the end of it. So now we have feats, which is fun. And Hope and I ordered our miniatures from Hero Forge, so we're going to have our minis coming in soon.
Are you going to paint them?
For our characters.
Or do they come painted?
We got them. We got them so they came colored because I don't have the patience or time. See, our father would love that, but I don't have the time to learn that skill.
Fair.
And also, I got some new dice for the next time because Sam had fancy metal dice and I wanted some fancy metal dice. And I got these dice that have they're bony.
Yeah.
I'm holding it up to the camera for Anna. Sorry, audience, you can't see. But they're kind of bony.
That's perfect
because
for your character.
Yeah, my Grave Cleric. Super fun. Yeah, they're super cool.
Oh, dude.
They're silvery gray and they're heavy.
Yeah.
They're silver and the edges are like bones. And the numbers, if you look closely, actually look like little bones too. And some of them kind of look like little fingers with the way they curl around. It's pretty. It's cool. It's also kind of spooky Halloween-y themed dice. So, went to Madness Games and Comics and got those dice. And they had some Lord of the Rings figures. And so when we go there, you're going to have to look and maybe get ready to drop some dough. Because they had a Weta Workshop Gandalf the White figure for $150 or something.
Oh.
They had a really cool. They had some cool Aragorn stuff.
No.
I got me a little goblin, a little Moria goblin.
Yeah, you did. Is
he's
that
pretty
from the Lord
cool.
of the Rings, or is that from Rings of Power?
No, it's from Lord of the Rings. It's from Fellowship.
Wow, how have I never seen that action figure before?
Well, I think it's a new.
Are they releasing new ones?
I feel like they might be. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell with that store because they have so many retro stuff.
True.
Or retro things.
True.
Anyway, so that's the D&D adventures and the things that I bought subsequently after because of the D&D adventures, except for the goblin that was just I saw it and I had to have it. Still playing Elden Ring, Persona 5 Royale, and Hades. I've talked about those previously. Reading. Still reading Oathbringer. I think I'm starting to wind down on that one. Also reading Hall of Smoke for the read-along.
Ooh, I am also reading Hall of Smoke. Question.
You sure are.
For Brandon Sanderson, sorry to interrupt your list of reading. Have
That's
you
okay.
read the, is it Alice, how do you say that word? Alessandre? It's a Brandon Sanderson book.
I have not.
Okay.
No. I've only read the first.
I don't think I'm saying the name correctly, so.
Elantris?
Yes!
Okay. No, I think that was his first novel, I think, that got published. I've not read that one.
Okay.
It is in the Cosmere universe with Mistborn and Stormlight, but I have not read that one.
Okay. Wait, Mistborn and Stormlight are in the same universe?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Different worlds, same universe.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's his whole thing, is this big Cosmere that he is working on, which is a bunch of stories told on different planets in the universe, and
Okay.
they kind of interconnect.
Interesting.
In cool ways. So anyway,
Is there space travel?
I don't know, maybe. There's a character that seems to be able to hop around worlds because he has appeared in other books on other worlds. Hoyd, you mischievous little freak. Anyway, also started since it's spooky season. It's kind of almost spooky season. I have been listening to an audiobook on Spotify called The Pale Blood Hunt, which is
An audiobook
basically
on Spotify?
yes, it is basically someone recorded the plot and like story of the Bloodborne game and in like an audiobook format, and it's actually really helpful because it kind of explains what the heck happens in that game because it's really hard to figure out on your own.
Interesting.
But it's read by this cool like raspy older English guy because it's basically a horror game about spending a night in England. So
Interesting.
And also I have now read all of Chainsaw Man.
Oh. That's a manga for those of you that don't know.
It is a manga. That's about to be an anime. Really, really soon here. I have to look up the date for that again. But yeah, I read the first couple volumes because I had the first couple volumes just by chance. And I read them and I was like, okay, I need to go get more of these. And then I went and got the next 3. And then Hope got onto them. And she was like, okay, these are really, really good. And then like we went and got 3 in the morning. We both read the 3, and then we like went back to Barnes & Noble and got the rest of the series that day.
So funny. So is it a completed series?
Part 1 is complete. Part 2 is still being published on Shonen Jump.
Okay.
I have not started part 2. So I have finished all of the manga volumes that have been released like in paperback.
Gotcha.
But for part 2, that I still need to do. And it's a very good series. It's graphic. It's, but it's very, very good. And like, it's definitely for, older, I think it's marketed for older teens.
Okay.
Like 16, 17 up. So it has some more mature stuff in it than like My Hero Academia.
Is it more graphic than Jujutsu Kaisen?
A little bit.
Is it better than JJK?
I mean, there's some similar vibes. It's also going to be, the anime is going to be produced by the same studio, by MAPPA, who does Attack on Titan and Jujutsu Kaisen, and now they're doing Chainsaw Man. So,
I'm just trying to decide if it's one that I will enjoy watching or not.
I mean, we'll see. When it comes out, I'll definitely watch it, and I can let you know what I think.
Okay.
If I think you'd enjoy it.
I just like really thought I would love Jujutsu Kaisen, and I just didn't.
You might have been a victim of overhype on that one.
That's possible. That's probably.
I mean, some of the characters are really, really cool.
Well, that's true. I really like Gojo, but
I think it's mostly the plot for me that's a little weak.
Yes, I agree.
Thank you for agreeing with me. The plot so far has been a little weak. The characters are great. The situations that they find themselves in are kind of like, okay.
Yes. So for Chainsaw Man, do you think that the plot is strong and the characters are strong?
Yes.
Okay. Then it has a better chance of being one that I'll enjoy.
And there's some really interesting commentary on, interestingly enough, there's some really good commentary on like gun violence, which is, you'll know what I mean when you read it. It's bizarre.
Okay. I probably won't
really
read it. I've maxed out my collection, like what I'm willing to collect.
If you watch it. Yeah, if you watch it.
As far as manga goes. I need to complete the series that I've started. And I'm looking at like a good 30 more volumes before that's done. Yeah. So.
And all the characters in Chainsaw Man are kind of nuts. Like they're all kind of off the chain. So it's really entertaining.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really entertaining. So, watching, here we go. Rapid fire. Rings of Power. Boom. House of the Dragon. Talked about it already. She-Hulk. Yep. Andor. Been there. Devil's a Part-Timer. Hope and I have been watching that anime, and that's been really, really fun. Really cute.
Have you watched that one before? Or part of it?
They came out... season 2 is happening.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we've been watching the new season as it's been released. We finished watching Toilet Bound Hanako-kun.
Oh, yeah, we did.
And now we're going to start another one that I think is to be determined, I hope.
Hopefully soon.
Yeah, because we're doing that tomorrow night. And Critical Role, obviously, talked about that. And your boys, Shane and Ryan, are back with Ghost Files.
Oh, really?
And they've started their own thing. They're not with BuzzFeed anymore because they did videos. They did videos for BuzzFeed Unsolved Supernatural where they have all these we go to these haunted locations to try to figure out if ghosts are real. They don't work for BuzzFeed anymore, but now they're doing their own thing. It's called Ghost Files, and the YouTube channel is called Watcher.
Okay.
And
I think I already followed that.
The first episode came out like a day ago or two.
Okay.
And they're revisiting one of the places they went to when they were doing BuzzFeed Unsolved. But it's been really fun.
I enjoy them a lot, so I will have to find that and watch it.
I love them a lot. And I'm glad that it's such good content for this time of year, for spooky fall season. So
yeah.
I'm very excited about that.
I have a question.
Yeah?
Do you know if the guy or the I don't know if it's a guy or not, the person who made The Haunting of Hill House and The Haunting of Bly Manor is putting out another show this October? Do you know?
I have no idea. Okay. Hadn't even thought about it.
Okay.
But I might have to rewatch Midnight Mass.
I'm not going to rewatch that one. I might rewatch one of the other ones.
That's fair.
I mean, I did enjoy Midnight Mass, but it
special brand of
it was really something else.
Ick.
Yeah.
All right. So that's all my stuff.
Okay.
So, all right, let's get into it. Rings of Power. So many theories.
Of power.
So many theories. Okay. So the first thing that I want to talk about is actually the title sequence. Because in the title sequence, there's like all those, like the vibrations, and there's like the sand that's like forming into different shapes and rings and stuff. Specifically the music in the background. Let me know next time you watch the title sequence. It sounds like some of the vocals, they're actually singing the One Ring incantation.
Well, okay, hold on. Let's just pull it up and listen to it real quick, because I
Okay.
will be able to talk about it better if that's... Okay, hold on.
Supercut. Boom. We're back. So we just listened to it.
I probably should have just paused the recording. Sorry. Oh, gosh.
So, headphone malfunction.
Strangling myself.
I'm keeping this in.
Okay.
Because I've already brought us back.
Yeah,
okay, so we just listened to the song. And we confirmed that definitely at the end, they say Ishi Krimpatul, which is like the very end of the ring, the One Ring incantation. So I caught that the last time that I watched it, and I just thought that was interesting and wanted to share that they actually used the words from the incantation in the title sequence.
I think that's great.
Which is very fitting.
Also, the title sequence is beautiful, and it just screams Middle Earth. And I know Howard Shore did it, so of course it does, but it's so
beautiful.
Good.
Beautiful. Okay, so now we're going to kind of go person by person.
Okay.
And let's start in kind of order of appearance. Let's start with The Stranger. What do you think of The Stranger?
I am becoming more and more certain that it is Gandalf. Even though it shouldn't be. Again, just the way he's interacting with the Harfoots. He seems like a newborn baby Gandalf. Like, he's very much an old man, but he's just like a baby deer on his feet. Doesn't know what he's doing quite yet. And is making some mistakes. And he feels remorseful about the fireflies. Like, he feels really awful about that. And he's really concerned about being a danger to the Harfoots. He does have an incident with Nori at the end of this last episode that was a little stressful. Felt a little bad about that. But I wish that Nori would have stuck around And so I know
Yeah.
exactly why she ran away, but I'm like, he was not trying to hurt you.
Yeah.
I know it freaked you
Yeah.
out, but he was clearly in a zone.
Yeah.
Also,
He's magic.
you're a child, so I get it. But so hopefully they can resolve that little bit of tension.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I am right now. I'm still on board with it being Gandalf. That's what I think is the most likely scenario, just because of kind of the relationship that Gandalf has with the hobbits later on in the franchise. I think that it would be weird at this point if it wasn't him.
Yeah.
But we're going to go over it anyway. So the other theories. It being Gandalf is, I think, the strongest contender, especially since he carved the Gandalf rune into that rock at some point.
Yeah.
That could just be like Quenya for G, so maybe it means nothing, but like it just still seems coincidence. There's still some folks out there that think that the stranger is Sauron.
I don't think it can be after we talked about the Celebrimbor like timeline.
Yeah.
Unless we're living in different timelines, which I suppose is possible.
Would be trippy. It's possible though. It is possible that they're doing some weird, like season 1 of The Witcher, like wacky timeline stuff.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Which would kind of explain the Numenor stuff, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. Well, they are definitely condensing the major events into one chunk of time.
Right.
Because they have to, because the Second Age is like thousands of years long. You'd have to recast all the humans every season.
Right, but what about all the kings of Gondor? Like, Isildur is not the... Like, if the line of kings is broken after the second king of Gondor, that doesn't make sense.
Well, the Second Age ends with the last battle against Sauron with
Right, I know.
Numenor and... Yeah.
Well, wait, is that Numenor that's in the last... No, it's Gondor.
Well, okay, right. The descendants of Numenor, because Numenor will have sunk by then. Spoiler,
Right.
Sorry.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. Like, there has to be Gondorian kings before Elendil and then Isildur.
No, they were the first. They
Were
founded,
they really?
They founded.
Oh, I didn't know
they
that.
founded it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought there were kings of Gondor before them.
Nope. They founded Gondor and Arnor, and Isildur's brother, whom we haven't met in the show yet, I believe was the one who ruled up in Arnor, or Isildur did. I don't know, but
Okay, I thought there was like a line of kings, but maybe when they're talking about the kings of old, they're talking about the Numenorian kings.
yeah, because they talk about being descendants of Numenor,
Which,
and especially the Dunedain, and they're blessed with long life because they're descendants of Numenor.
Right.
Because the Numenor people had some elf blood mixed in there.
Right.
At least the royals did. Anyway, yes, the stranger
Sorry.
being Sauron doesn't make sense.
Sorry,
to
I
me.
totally sidetracked that.
The reason some people think that it might be is because when he landed, he kind of looked like the Eye of Sauron, like laying in that meteor. I guess so. I think it was more just pretty and dramatic imagery. Also, Gandalf is heavily associated with fire. Anyway, I know that we talked about like how with the Ring of Power, which he hasn't gotten yet, how that's like the fire ring. But I think he's still heavily like the imagery makes sense if it's Gandalf. And like killing the fireflies, like you said, he feels bad for it. Mm-hmm. He's concerned about being dangerous, and he doesn't want to hurt the Harfoots.
And he wants to help Nori's family, which is great because without him, they would have been abandoned by the Harfoots.
Yeah, for sure. And also, I think we're going to kind of see him figure out that he needs a staff to kind of focus his magic, because he fought the wolves off with his bare hands and he hurt himself because he punched because he punched the ground and busted his arm up, and then he had to try to heal it in that pool with like the weird
ice water.
We'll call it a magical ice pack, and he healed his arm and had that interaction with Nori. But I think that he is going to figure out that if he uses his staff, it'll be easier.
Yeah.
Maybe he needs that focus point,
Yeah, I think so.
And there's also a theory that he might be one of the blue wizards, because in Tolkien's notes, the blue wizards may have actually come over first before all the other ones in the Second Age. It's unknown how they traveled over. Gandalf was supposed to have sailed over and like met with Círdan the shipwright in the Grey Havens when he landed.
Oh, and that's when he got the ring?
Right.
Oh.
But obviously they're kind of taking some liberties with some of the lore because you kind of have to with adaptations like this.
Right.
But he could still be a blue wizard. But since we have all these interactions with the Harfoots, I think it would make sense story-wise if he's Gandalf. Because it strengthens the bond that Gandalf has with the Shire and the Hobbits later on in the franchise if it's Gandalf. If it's just one of the blue wizards and we never see him again, it's like, why did we care about the stranger if we,
Right.
you know?
Right.
Yeah. So, and I've also seen some wacky stuff like Gandalf, the stranger is a Balrog. And I'm like, no, that's dumb. I don't buy that one at all.
No way. That's not even possible. They're their own entities and creatures. Like they don't shapeshift into humans.
They're both
or
Maya,
humanoid figures.
but they're very much more like elemental Maya. They're not like Anyway,
this is funny. I had dinner with some friends last night, and speaking of the Harfoots, the husband of this this couple. He only
the
has
husband
one.
of the friend group.
He only has one wife.
His harem.
He goes, we've been talking about the show, and he goes, and how annoying are the Harfoots? And I was like,
Shut
so
up.
taken aback. And I was like, what? He goes, they're like Ewoks. And I go, no, they're not.
hobbits.
They're pre-hobbits. And then as we were talking, he was like, I didn't even have to do much to convince him except saying, they're pre-hobbits. And he was like, yeah, they just don't make sense. Like, and even hobbits don't make sense. And he's like, well, okay, I guess they're fine.
Oh my gosh, I would have gotten so defensive for the hobbits just then, or the Harfoots.
Yeah, I was like, what? What do you mean? They're so annoying. They're so cute. I love them. They're so wholesome.
Their whole point is to be wholesome and cute
Right.
and innocent.
Right.
They're the precious cinnamon rolls that must be protected.
But they're good at protecting themselves with disguise.
They're good at hiding.
They're good at hiding.
Yeah.
So that's a form of protection. It's a valid form of protection in the animal world. Disguising oneself.
You're right.
They're not animals, but you know what I mean?
They're like stick bugs.
Yes.
The hobbits are like stick bugs. I am a stick.
I mean, they do wear stuff in their hair so that they look like the foliage around them.
They do. They've got like permanent ghillie suits on.
It's kind of awesome.
Anyway, so that's the stranger. So moving on, Halbrand. What do you think of Halbrand? He's interesting.
He is interesting. I don't really know what to think of him. I can't decide if I like him or not.
Fair. Same.
Don't think he's Sauron. I wish Galadriel wasn't so bent on dragging him with her. Just leave him be.
Let the man live his life.
Right. He wants to not be in Middle-earth. Let him not be in Middle-earth. Who cares? But the fact that she has picked him out to be like a descendant of this group of men, to be their king, makes me think that he's either going to be the Witch King of Angmar or the King of the Dead, whose people I don't remember what they're called, but that Aragorn calls to action because he didn't come to Isildur's aid. He didn't come to Isildur's aid. So that kind of makes sense if it's Halbrand, because I could totally see him getting over to Middle-earth and being like, yeah, I guess I'll help, because Galadriel, twisted my arm, almost literally. And then once he has a group of people being like, you know what? No, we're just going to stay in the mountains. Leave us alone. I could totally see that happening. So,
correct. So that is one of the theories about Halbrand that's pretty prevalent. There's three main theories, right? There's either Halbrand is Sauron, which everyone can be, everyone is Sauron is basically that should be the title of this video. Everyone is Sauron.
Well, maybe it will be. I'm going to write it down.
Nori might be Sauron.
Now that would be a plot twist.
The really annoying, gossipy Harfoot. She's
Malva.
probably Sauron.
Malva.
No, but the reason why some people thought that Halbrand might be Sauron is because, one, he's in Numenor.
Yeah.
And canonically, in the lore, Sauron goes to Numenor,
Oh, does
corrupts
he?
it. Yeah, he gets captured by Numenor and then basically corrupts it from within and is very instrumental in its sinking.
Well, in that case, I think it's the old guy.
Oh, Pharazôn, the
Yeah.
counselor guy, the chancellor.
Yeah.
So this is a deep cut, but it's probably so spoilers for like the rest of the show. This will happen most likely in the show. So just if you don't want this to be a spoiler, plug your ears for a few seconds. Our Pharazôn will usurp the throne from the lady who's there now and is basically another contributing factor to Numenor sinking because he wants to seize immortality for himself because he's jealous of the elves and he tries to sail the Numenorian fleet to the Undying Lands and the Valar are like, no, you're not doing that, and sink them and sink Numenor and yeah.
So is the Queen Regent like an actual part of the
She's a
lore?
real person.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
See, that was one of the
She's a real
things that I
person.
kind of assumed that they had modernized.
No, she was a real character. So was Tar Palantir, her dad. He
Okay.
was the last. He was like the last of the kings from like when Numenor was still a good place to be.
Okay.
And
cool.
after him and after our Pharazôn takes over, it becomes kind of a darker situation. But anyway, that could be like spoilers for the next couple seasons of the show.
And he's probably not Sauron.
No, he's not.
But if Halbrand leaves Numenor, he didn't do much to corrupt it while he was there. And it
Right,
seems
and
like
since-
he's leaving.
And since after episode 5, Halbrand is leaving Numenor, I think it's safe to say he's not Sauron, in my book. But him being a really good smith, him kind of going beast mode against some of those guild dudes in the alley. There were some moments that made people think like, Sauron?
I mean,
because Sauron
I had
is
those
a
moments.
skilled... Yeah. Because Sauron is a skilled smith. He was under Howl the smith, the Valar, who like created the dwarves. Interestingly enough, so was Saruman. Was also under Howl. So Howl doesn't have the best track record for Maya.
Well, he also created
going rogue.
But he also created the dwarves ahead of time. So
Yeah, he is kind of a rogue.
He's borderline
Valar himself. He's still one of the big three though. But
yeah.
Anyway. So Halbrand is Sauron. It's possible. I don't think it's likely. The two biggest contenders for me are the ones that you already mentioned, which are Halbrand being the King of the Dead, or Halbrand being the Witch King of Angmar, or another Nazgul. Because we know that he is descended from kings of men in the Southlands, which is basically, I think, they're kind of lumping the area that will be known as Gondor and Mordor into that all as the Southlands.
Yeah.
But so he's has royal blood from the Southlands. He could be the king of that area. And we know that Sauron gave rings of power to kings of men and corrupted them. So Halbrand could be one of the kings of men that is given a ring of power and turns into a Nazgul, maybe even the Witch King, which would add some more drama to because something else to think about is like, does it enrich the story later on in the movies? Does it actually work to enrich the story? And him being the Witch King, I think would, because like the Witch King attacking Minas Tirith has an even deeper meaning then, because he's kind of trying to, like in his dark and twisted way, being the Witch King, reclaim his own kingdom from Gondor, because he was the king of the Southlands. So there's some interesting stuff there, and it also explains the grudge match he had against Arnor up north when he actually had the kingdom of Angmar, because that was also descendants of Numenor. So he could just become the Witch King and have a serious grudge match against the Numenorians for like seizing his Southland kingdom. So that's definitely a contender. The King of the Dead is my favorite one, though, because it just makes sense to me. But
Yeah, agreed.
so he's a king of these Southlanders. However, it's also been established that there was some kind of blood pact between these people and Morgoth back in the First Age. They fought for Morgoth, and now there's this crazy stuff with like this sword that like feeds on your blood and does crazy stuff, and it's like a key. We don't know what the deal is with the sword yet. We're not that far in the show.
Right. That also hasn't been tied to Halbrand at all yet.
Not yet, but it does. It still ties to like the blood of these people is still like there's some kind of
Connection.
like to with these people and Sauron / Morgoth. So it could be that he becomes a king of these people, and he is asked to come to the aid of Numenor / Gondor. Who knows what they'll do with the timeline, and come to their aid in the Battle of the Last Alliance against Sauron, and he'll say, nope, I can't. We have like a blood pact thing. I can't raise my hand against Sauron. Sorry, I can't do it. Or like, I just rescued my people from him. You think I'm going to go back in there and like, there's a lot of different explanations they could use for why he chooses to abandon his oath to Isildur and not. Yeah. But I think that's what they'll do. And I don't even know if canonically that the Battle of the Last Alliance was the fight that
I don't know either.
He bounced on. It could be a later fight, like after, like when Isildur is the king of Gondor, after Elendil dies in the Battle of the Last Alliance. It could have been after that. But I think it's more dramatic for the story if it's that battle. So that's how I would foresee it happening. And then because of that, Isildur curses him, and his people were banished under the shadow of the mountain.
Right.
And then insert Legolas's monologue here.
Yes.
And so that would be really interesting, and that would, again, enrich the story later on when Aragorn has to go back to summon the king to fulfill his oath and all this stuff.
And then the moment when his oath is fulfilled, and you just see the relief wash over him. Yeah. No, I totally agree.
And all the Southlanders are finally at peace and can move on. That one is my favorite theory.
Agreed.
So far. I really hope it's that one. But I would settle for Witch King. That would also be cool. Okay, let's talk Adar.
Yeah. So my friends asked me what the deal was with him, and I was like, I don't have any idea. I don't know.
Fair.
He creeps me out, but I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Stellar acting.
Yeah.
Good job. He's the same actor that played Benjen Stark in Game of Thrones.
Oh my gosh, it is. You texted that to me. No, you texted me something else. You texted me another person that you were like, oh, I figured out why this person looks familiar.
Oh, Elrond was young Ned Stark in
Yes.
Game of Thrones. Yeah. So Adar, of course, might be Sauron. Except no. Well, in the last episode, for me, it was kind of a soft confirmation that he's not, because there was that hilarious moment where that Southland guy, I forget his name, but he was like, I pledge myself to Sauron. You are Sauron, aren't you?
Yeah.
And he doesn't answer, and he just like slams him into the ground. And I'm like, bro, he's not even Sauron.
And he's like, I'll pledge myself to you. Like, wow,
Whoever
are a
you are.
lily-livered fish person, aren't you? Or whatever that phrase is. Jeez Louise.
Yeah. Just willing to side with whichever side's winning.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if he were Sauron, since this is an elf, I think that he would look more beautiful. If he was being Anatar right now, I think he would appear not so like decrepit and like diseased. He's clearly got something going on.
He looks like he has like some kind of scars on his face, like burn scars maybe. Which can lead us to some other theories. So okay, the Sauron theory could technically still fit, because it could be mayhaps that he does not like the name Sauron because that wasn't his original name. He was called Mehron, and he was like the fair. He was supposed to be very beautiful. So he might not like the name Sauron, or some of the other names that were given to him by the elves after he threw his lot in with Morgoth. So that could be why he kind of freaked out when he was called that. I still think it's weak. I think it's pretty much confirmed that he's not Sauron.
But I have no idea who he would be either.
Right. So let's dive into that.
Okay.
So these are all first stage elves. Ready?
Okay.
Because he did have that moment with Arondir when he asked where he was born, and Arondir said Beleriand, which is the whole western half of the continent of Middle-earth that got sunk in the War of Wrath, got just broken and destroyed.
Right.
So that's where he is from. And so I think it's safe to assume that Adar is also from there because they had a connection there where he was like, oh, by the mouth of the river. And he had been there before, right? So I think it's a pretty safe bet that he was one of the first age elves. It's just a matter of which one, or if he's new. He could just be a totally new character who's like a corrupted elf. And he could also be one of the Avari elves, which were one of the original elves that were supposedly corrupted by Morgoth to create the orcs. He could be one of them,
which would make sense.
Be creepy.
But it makes sense because they call him Adar, which is like a version of the Elvish word for father.
Correct. And they even call him Lord Father later on. So that is a strong contender, him being one of the Avari elves that was tortured, and he kind of contributed by force into creating the race that is known as the orcs.
I mean, he does look tortured, and
he sure does.
He does. So in this last episode, there's the scene where he has the orc take his sleeve up to feel like the sun burn his skin, which seemed very cruel and was kind of cruel. But he was like, I wish you could feel the sun the way I feel the sun, and that it didn't hurt you the way it hurts you. And that felt like a very, like, I care about these creatures in a way, in a very, like, twisted kind of way.
Yeah, which if he is kind of indirectly responsible for their creation, that could make sense. They're kind of like, he's Dr. Frankenstein, and these are Frankenstein's monsters. So him being one of those elves that was tortured and contributed to creating the orc race makes sense. That's a very strong theory.
Yeah.
Another theory is that he could be Eol, who is a dark elf, who he had a creepy sword. He was a really good smith. He was really moody. He kind of just checks all the boxes because, like, he's got this black stuff on, and he just kind of looks the way I always picture that character. But the issue being that he was killed in the Silmarillion. But, like, who knows? Was he? Because the next contender is Eol's kid. Maeglin, who was...
I know that name.
Do you? So, Maeglin is the elf that went turncoat and is responsible to the fall, really, I don't want to say like fully responsible, but heavily influential in the fall of Gondolin, because he led the orc forces to the city to sack it because of something. I need to reread it and to tell you exactly why. There's probably some drama about a girl, I think. He was annoyed that someone else got the girl instead of him. Always. So, yeah. We'll leave it to toxic masculinity to destroy an entire beautiful city. Totally. So, Maeglin. But he supposedly died by throwing himself into a fire off a cliff. But he has burns all over him. Could be him. Could be. The Adar stuff and the Lord Father stuff from the orcs doesn't make as much sense, but he did like lead orcs to Gondolin to sack it. So he might have some kind of authority there.
Yeah, my bet's still on the Avari elves, though. One of those guys.
And the last one that I've heard mentioned is Maglor, who
the red hair.
No, that's Mithros. But you're right. Names. It is one of the sons of Feanor. Okay. Mithros was the oldest, and he threw himself into a fiery pit with one of the Silmarils.
So a cousin of Galadriel.
Because it burned him. Yes, I believe so. Okay. I think maybe, but
the elf family trees get really.
They really do. Maglor was said to have been one of the last surviving sons of Feanor, and he threw the remaining Silmaril into the sea. And because the Silmaril, when it was all said and done, burned his hand because of the wicked deeds they had done to get them back, the Silmarils kind of viewed them as evil and burned them. And so in grief, threw it into the ocean. And then it was said that he walked the coasts of Middle-earth playing sad songs on his harp because he was like the best musician in the age. So that's Maglor. So could he have like lost his mind and gone insane and started gallivanting with orcs? Maybe. You know, he's one of the elves that could have survived, and the burns on him could be from holding one of the Silmarils when it burned him, and he threw it in the ocean. So it's a contender. I think the Avari elf one is the most likely right now, though.
Yeah.
Even though his imagery evokes like Ael, the dark elf, and he also had like a creepy black sword that could like talk to you, and he's like trying to get this creepy black sword back. But I don't think those are connected, actually. I thought maybe the black sword was the same one, but I don't think it actually is, because it was like they're talking about how Sauron made it for these Southland people. And anyway.
Yeah.
That's Adar. How about those weird cultists?
Okay, so from the promotional footage that we saw of them, I thought that the like very shorn head one was a guy.
Oh yeah, no, it's a lady.
It's a lady.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to think about them other than they creep me out.
They do. They're pretty creepy. I
did see a theory that they could be the wolves. So like that they're shapeshifters, because there were 3 wolves that attacked the Harfoots after looking at the meteor imprint from the Starman. You know what I'm talking about?
That's interesting. Yeah.
And that they could have shapeshifted into wolves. And that's why they were going after more so the Gandalf character than the Harfoots. And the Harfoots were just in the way.
Interesting.
But,
yeah, I hadn't heard that theory. Could be.
Could be.
Yeah, I don't have much theories other than they're clearly looking for Meteor Man. Mm-hmm. And they also, on the back of one of the things they were carrying, you could see that same constellation that I think he's been looking for. Mm-hmm. And I heard an interesting theory from someone on Reddit, where when the meteor fell, the reason why he can't find the constellation anymore is because maybe him and the 5 other wizards that fell were the constellation. And then they fell down, and now it's not there anymore.
Which... You know, that's interesting because the Harfoots, the one guy, like the head Harfoot, whose name I can't remember, has also been talking about how the stars are strange.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I also saw, because it didn't make sense for that meteor to pass over the sky of Gil-galad, Arondir, the Harfoots, that it was 5 different meteors that we were seeing. But we've only seen one land.
I think that makes the most sense because there's no way it passed over Mordor and then landed near the Anduin River. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. So there being multiple meteors that fell, I think that's what happened. Yeah. And we're just focused on one of the people that landed.
Also, interesting thing. The Harfoots have called the forest that they're near the Old Forest. And so in my head, I had put them already like near the Shire and what we know to be the Old Forest. They're not.
No.
They're not at all. And it's more likely, it seems, that the Old Forest is the Fangorn Forest that they're near.
Yeah, I think it's either Fangorn or Mirkwood. It's one of those.
Yeah.
Because that's the area they're in along the Anduin. But
I just want you to know that I have figured something out.
And it was map related.
I'm
so proud. I'm so proud of you.
I mean, hobbits I assumed were close to the Shire, but it makes sense that they're not there yet because they have to get there.
Yeah. Because historically, the hobbits did start as kind of like hunter-gatherer, like in the lore, along the Anduin rivers.
Yeah.
So
anyway.
Yeah.
Thought you'd be proud of me for that.
I'm very proud of you.
Thanks.
Also, this is a total rabbit trail, whatever it's called. So what I was saying about Maglor, like forever wandering the coasts of Middle-earth, singing sad songs and stuff. When we were playing the One Ring RPG. Had the party ever managed to make it to a coast, that would have been a potential random encounter if you had ever been on a coast. But it didn't look like that would ever happen. But I 100% was going to make that an encounter if someone rolled either super well or super bad, depending. But
I miss the One Ring.
yeah. For those of you, we haven't mentioned it for like things we've been playing recently because we kind of had to. There was just too many scheduling conflicts. We had to just call it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
I'm hoping to resurrect it at some point.
Still,
in a fashion.
It could happen. Yeah.
Not in the same way.
It could happen.
Because obviously the scheduling conflicts won't resolve. But anyway.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think. Anyway, so I think that those cultists are definitely just after the Meteor Men. And who they work for, who knows? Maybe they work for Sauron. Maybe they work for some other place.
I mean, they seem pretty evil. So my guess is either Sauron or Morgoth. But
yeah,
I don't know.
Who knows? We'll see. I think in the next episode, more will probably be revealed. And then I did want to touch briefly on Elrond's oath to Durin about not telling anyone about the Mithril, and then how it got broken. Now, when Durin makes... Go.
I don't want to... I want to say that I am very proud of Elrond and how he handled that situation because nobody was being very fair to him.
No, they weren't.
And I think he handled it very well.
And Durin, thank goodness, reacted well.
Well, he basically told Durin, like, hey, this has not gone the way I thought it was going to go, and I need you to know that I'm going to have to break this oath. And Durin was like, will it save all the elves? And he was like, we think so. Okay.
But the thing is...
That went better than I expected.
When Elrond makes the oath, Durin says, the stone will bind you, and if you break the oath, like... your life is going to be full of sorrow from here on out. And
he did say that
is so true. Because looking at Elrond's life from basically this point onward, it is just full of sorrow. Because even the moments of joy with like he is going to get married to Galadriel's daughter, and they're going to have Arwen, and
their two sons.
And you're right. I can't forget
Elladan,
Elrohir. So there is some happiness there, but his wife gets captured by orcs and gets tortured and has to go to the Undying Lands because of like PTSD. Arwen ends up choosing a mortal life in Middle Earth, and he has to leave her behind to die. Like all of the elves that he knows right now are gonna get killed.
Not Galadriel, though.
By Sauron, except for her. She's the one exception. Spoilers for what's probably going to happen in this show. Gil-galad's going to get cooked alive by Sauron in the last battle.
But you should already know that.
Celebrimbor is going to get brutally murdered by Sauron and hoisted as a banner in his army to haul around. It's like his life is going to go downhill pretty quick. So that was one of those moments of like, oh, Elrond, your life is going to suck from here on out, all because of this stupid oath.
Well, Durin's life isn't real whippy either, so.
No.
The dwarves get down a rocky path for sure.
Yeah, because Khazad-dûm is going to get wrecked.
Yeah.
But I thought the stuff they did with the Mithril was really interesting with... That was such a wallpaper moment with that battle with the Balrog and the elf on top of the mountain with the tree, and the lightning strikes the tree. It's just such a wicked moment. It's so cool. But the idea that the Mithril was like isn't a natural ore, and that it's all like Elrond said, apocrypha. Like it's not real. Like it's a folk story, but kind of explaining the origin of Mithril. And why it's like shiny and so sought after because it has some of the light of the trees infused into it potentially.
Yeah.
Well, the light of one of the Silmarils and consequently from the trees.
Light, yeah.
But that was a really cool shot of like the Balrog on top of the mountain fighting the elf and everything.
Which
that was
that's
super cool.
That Balrog shot is the one we saw in the trailer.
The one from the trailer was like a close up.
Was it?
Yeah. It was like, but I mean, they put footage in trailers that don't make it in the actual show all the time.
It's true.
We might not see the Balrog get woken up this season. In fact, I kind of hope we don't, because that seems really early, and I want to see more of Khazad-dûm. I don't want the place to get wrecked.
I know.
I like the dwarves so much.
Me too. I did have a friend ask me if Gil-galad could be Sauron. But they didn't know it was Gil-galad. They just said, could the Elf King be Sauron? And I go, well, it's Gil-galad. And they're like, so that can't be Sauron? I was like, no. No, it cannot. Unless he's impersonating Gil-galad. But I don't think that's happening.
He's a shapeshifter. He could be like orchestrating things in that way where he has been all of them. He has shapeshifted into all of these people before, and he's messing with everyone.
Wow, that makes the show way more complicated.
It sure does. But no, I don't think Gil-galad is Sauron. I think Gil-galad is just a king who's trying desperately to save his race and is willing to do anything.
I do want to talk about Gil-galad a little bit, because he's showing us that the elves are still messy. Fair.
Yeah.
But his reasoning to send Galadriel back to the Undying Lands, or to Valinor, because her presence in Middle-earth was causing the darkness to spread, I was like, that seems like not a good reason. Your logic seems very flawed. I don't understand why you thought that was the answer to this problem. When she's like known as the Lady of Light.
It just seems like he was like just trying to brush it all under the rug, you know? Like, if I ignore it, it's not there.
But he said in this last episode, we thought that if we sent Galadriel back, that it would stop, but it hasn't stopped, and we sent her back. And then I was like, oh, they don't know that she's still in Middle-earth. But that wouldn't have stopped the darkness from spreading at all.
Yeah, no.
So it doesn't really matter. And I don't think that Mithril's the answer either.
No way.
So
what I think, here's what my prediction is now with what we know. It's that I don't think any of these guys are Sauron. I think that Sauron is in Eregion, whispering in Celebrimbor's ear, and that Celebrimbor is whispering into Gil-galad's ear about this Mithril, and that I think that the rings, the elven rings at least, are going to be made of Mithril, and that's the rings of power, because if every elf has got one of these rings with the light of the trees, it could help stave off their degradation, like they were talking about, them fading away.
Right.
And the rings do help do that with like these specific pockets, like Rivendell,
Lorien.
Lothlorien. Yes, Lothlorien. Thank you. I was like, it's not Mirkwood. Thranduil doesn't have one. The other forest.
No, the Mirkwood elves are.
Thranduil wishes.
They're doing their own thing. Lothlorien / Lorien. Yes.
Yes, I think that those rings that the elves end up making are going to be made of Mithril to try to stave off that darkness. And I think that honestly, it could be that story is just a total farce, just total falsity, that Anatar, aka Sauron, is whispering in their ears, because he might want the Mithril for other stuff. Who knows? Sought after ore. It's really tough stuff. But so yeah, I think that Anatar is still in Eregion, and that he is still orchestrating things there.
I think so too. After we came to the last time we talked about how Celebrimbor was motivating certain things to happen, I was like, oh, okay. He's already being influenced and manipulated. He has good intentions. Yeah. He doesn't realize that he's being... I don't think he realizes...
Oh, no.
That he's being manipulated this way.
The elves don't... in the lore, anyway, the elves don't realize who Sauron is and that they've been manipulated until, like, the ring gets put on Sauron's finger and he tries to ensnare them. Although, in the books, Gil-galad is one of the first people to be suspicious of him, and I believe Galadriel is also suspicious.
That tracks.
So, But yeah, Celebrimbor is totally taken in by this Anatar guy. But yeah, I think that Sauron has not been met yet. But I think that the marketing team at Rings of Power is brilliant for making this like
Where's Waldo
stew
of Sauron?
of yeah, yeah. Well done to them. But yeah. And if any of you want to listen to some really hardcore analysis for the Rings of Power, go check out the YouTube channel called Rings and Realms. It is hosted by Corey Olson, who is a Tolkien professor.
Yeah, he is the Tolkien professor.
Yeah,
you could also take classes
Tolkien.
from him, but
Yeah.
a free YouTube channel seems like a good option too.
Yeah, because he does like a deep dive of all the episodes, and there's other people that contribute too that do their own segments on it. But yeah, they go really deep into the lore. He says what's actually part of the Tolkien lore and what's new that the show has created. He goes over a lot of stuff. So if the episodes are pretty long, like he gets really into it. So if you're interested in that, in some really deep dives and deep cuts, go check that out. Once again, that's Rings and Realms by Corey Olson. Yeah. So that's pretty much it for what I had written down to talk about today for all of the crazy theories. And I think we got quite a long one already. But do you have was there anything that you thought of that you wanted to talk about that we didn't hit or touch on?
I just want to briefly mention that Elendil is amazing.
He's awesome.
He's so good.
His voice, I want him to read me bedtime stories.
Yeah.
He is great. Elendil is awesome.
Yeah.
Great casting. Isildur is pretty annoying.
But, that kind of tracks.
He's young. He's young in
well,
this.
and also, I was thinking he's annoying and he makes dumb choices. And I was like, well, and he also ends up standing in Mount Doom with the ring and decides to not throw it into the fire. So he has a good track record of making dumb choices. So I don't know what the deal is with his sister. I wish I understood more, what that all is.
I think in the lore he had a sister. I just don't know much about her. I'd have to look it up again. Yeah,
I just they keep hinting at her and maybe she's just supposed to give us another perspective of someone who's going to get caught in the crossfires of this whole thing.
Yeah. Especially since she's got a thing with Pharazon's son. Ugh.
Yeah.
That's a plot point I could do without.
Yeah, agreed.
It's a weak one.
We also didn't talk about Arondir and the people of the Southlands. So he gets let go from the orcs.
I'm still not sure what to think about that whole sword situation. I don't think we know enough yet we don't know what, because they were talking about how the sword is a key. A key to what? Well, what's possibly there?
Based on the motif that they were looking at, it's a key to killing men. You know what I mean? The motif they're looking at is clearly Sauron with the sword stabbing a man on the ground.
Yeah, it seems pretty oppressive.
Yeah.
I did see a theory about how maybe the sword will be responsible for Orodruin, aka Mount Doom, erupting and kind of terraforming Mordor into the hellscape that it becomes. That'd be interesting. If we get to see Mount Doom erupt, that'd be pretty cool. The orcs would finally be able to exist without covering themselves up with bed sheets and...
Yeah, those poor orcs.
But hey, man, props to them for actually making the sun an obstacle for the orcs. Finally it's acknowledged that the orcs don't like the sun.
I mean, they did it very subtly in the Lord of the Rings movies.
But then the Hobbit movies totally forgot about it.
Yeah.
Totally forgot.
I just don't want to throw the Lord of the Rings movies under the bus with the Hobbit movies.
Yeah, you're right.
Because I don't think it deserves that.
Also, when are we going to meet Celeborn?
Gosh!
When's Galadriel's husband going to show up?
I just want him to be around so bad.
Hopefully that happens and she gets to meet Celeborn and have a love interest. That isn't Halbrand. Ugh. Gross. Anyway, we also saw Narsil.
We did.
That was
very
cool.
Briefly.
We saw it in the background. Or still exists. The sword. The Sword of Kings.
We also saw a Palantir.
Yeah, okay, that scene when the flood hits Numenor, the wave hits Numenor to sink it, that was so cool.
Yeah.
And the effect when Galadriel looks in the Palantir and like it shatters and there's water everywhere, and that was really cool too. Some really, really awesome special effects in this show.
Yeah. And they said the line about the leaves of Gondor not falling idly or whatever, which like Aragorn says the leaves of Lorien do not fall idly. But I was like, oh yeah, the tree of the Numenorians is also super significant. Because
that tree, I believe, is like a sapling, or it's significant because it's partially related to the trees of Valinor. Partially. But also, that tree, I think that's right. Correct me if I'm wrong, anyone. The tree of Gondor on top of Minas Tirith, that's like all dead and decrepit in Return of the King, is a sapling of that tree.
Well, and good grief. Aragorn has to go and cut a new sapling to replace it when he becomes king. Yeah. It's like a whole thing. It's obviously not a sapling of that tree anymore because that tree won't be around. But
yeah, he has to like plant a new thing because the tree is super dead. But anyway, so yeah, that's where we're at with Rings of Power right now. There's so much going on. The dwarves are still kind of carrying the show for me. The dwarves are so great. I love Disa and Durin and all of them so much. And the Harfoot song, the song that Poppy sings, and it like quoted the "Not All Who Wander Are Lost" poem. It was so good.
It was so good. That also doesn't make a lot of sense because that's Aragorn's poem, but it's fine.
No, it doesn't. And Bilbo writes it.
And
whatever.
I'm forgiving that.
Bilbo. So that means in canon, Bilbo plagiarized Poppy's song.
Well, you know what's more likely is that Bilbo was a lorist, which we know is true, and that he riffed off of an old song to create a new song that he felt was fitting for Aragorn.
Okay, fine. Also known as plagiarism. So, but I mean, it's at that point it's open source. At that point, no one can have the rights for those words.
It's like the Itsy Bitsy Spider, but way cooler.
It's like It's a Wonderful Life of Middle Earth. Anyone can reference it. Anyone can use it in content.
Sure.
Anyway, so dumb. So that's where we're at. So lots of stuff going on in Rings of Power. Thank you for bearing with us while we talk about it ceaselessly. This episode was my idea. I had to talk about Rings of Power theories.
Yeah. I thought it was just going to be like a little mini snippet that we were going to put in, but no, it's the whole episode, which is great. I love it. And
then we do know what the next episode is going to be, though. Should we tell people?
Assuming we don't watch the next 2 episodes of Rings of Power, and the same thing happens. We are going to talk about bookshelf organization.
Yeah. So, alrighty. We'll see. Hopefully that's the next episode.
Yeah. That'd be good.
All right. Well, I think we've talked long enough, so we'll call it good. So yeah, let us know what your theories are if you have any. Down in comments. Did we miss any
that are like glaringly obvious?
Maybe. Isildur is Sauron.
I like Gil-galad as Sauron.
Gil-galad is Sauron. Yeah, Gil-galad is Gollum. Anyway, no,
Nori is Gollum.
Could we meet Gollum? Does Gollum exist? Whoa, I never thought about that.
No.
Gollum, well, no, because the ring was in the bottom of the river for like hundreds of years. Okay, never mind.
I was like, I don't think so.
Never mind. That's dumb. Okay.
We could meet his like great grandfather though.
It's true. Okay, so that's it for our Rings of Power theories. So I guess until next time, next week is going to be Hall of Smoke read along. So get reading.
Yes.
If you haven't been, I will also need to do that. So, all right. Until next time, go read something cool.
And we'll talk at you next time.
Later.
Bye.